Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live, and there's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video you can get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. Now we are joined by Neil, 10th Man, Arwin, and a whole bunch of people in Discord, so welcome one and all.
Hello. Good afternoon.
Hey.
Enthusiasm level at about 20%. Fair enough. Let's do a bit of housekeeping, see if that gets you in the mood. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, formerly known as Earth curve?
Black Swan?
Black Swan? Indeed.
Yeah.
The horizon's not a physical geometric sphere edge blocking boats and buildings with its physicalness.
Terrestrial refraction.
Just me, or is Arwen a bit quiet?
Oh. No, must be me. I said terrestrial refraction, right?
Terrestrial refraction
Not
requires R.
geometric.
See Arwen's yesterday show.
Oh, right. If it's not geometric, then how did we get the R value? Well, then it must be just geometric after all, right?
Not unless you can measure it.
No. You're supposed to say, yeah, but if it is geometric, then it's the Black Swan. Makes it impossible.
I see. In other words, if you're claiming you've got a straight line to it, the horizon, that is, then Black Swan. It's beyond the geometric limitations of an Earth sphere radius 3959.
Right, so it's basically the option for the Globers now. Okay, which one do you choose? Do you choose the Black Swan making the geometry impossible? Or do you choose not being able to establish an R value? Which one do you choose?
Both are true. The geometric impossibility is demonstrated by the Black Swan. Hence the rebuttal is the geometric horizon only exists in the maths. The geometric horizon is the horizon you wouldn't expect to see. Nobody's claiming the horizon is Earth curve. That's because the Earth curve calculator shows the horizon as being their geometric limitation, and the drop values and all the rest of it are calculated from that. It's based on R. So therefore, if they haven't got a straight line to it, as is the case and demonstrated in the Black Swan, it's non-geometric, refracted. Refracted! So therefore it's refracted, Arwen. Right, so it's definitely not going to give them R values because they can't suck off all the atmosphere to see a geometric capable of measuring horizon when they assume that they've got a sphere Earth beneath their feet. That simply isn't possible. How inconvenient if you need to acquire one.
Right, you only have to choke all life on Earth in order to see the supposed spherical geometry of it.
Yeah, we could show you Earth curve, but we'd have to kill you.
Yeah, we could show you, but we have to kill you. That's right. Yeah.
In the meantime, we'll pretend that the horizon that is definitely not Earth curve is Earth curve, and we've got these maths to show how much it's physically blocking stuff, even though it's not physical. So just accept that the horizon is physically blocking stuff, even though it's not physical and you could never see it. That's currently the argument and state of play for the globe Earth. It's got to be very painful for them.
Indeed.
Isn't there a crossover with Arwen's little dig at them? So if you're going to choke the whole Earth, then that means everything just vanished up into space.
Yeah, how are you going to do that?
Gas pressure.
Exactly. How are you going to do that? I mean, what you'd need in order to achieve no Atmo day is some sort of, I don't know, vast empty space for all the gas to go into, and then we'd have no Atmo day. If only the sky was a vacuum. Obviously, that would be a second law of thermodynamics violation. Also, what they claim is space. But if it was that, then you could achieve no Atmo day because the gas would vacate into that area as it expands in all directions to fill the availability of volume.
That's a good point. The only way they could do it is making a giant container, like the size of half a continent, and then basically start utilizing pumps to pull all the air out of the container of the regular realm into it, compressing it to liquid, and then at some point, it's going to be very slow and very painful, by the way, and at some point there will be a sufficient drop in air pressure to see the Earth as it really is without terrestrial refraction.
Terrestrial refraction only exists in the maths. It's an hour-based refraction. So to say that we would not see terrestrial refraction, which is always an effect on a sphere that I assume from a model where we can't see the geometric horizon, that would be Earth curve, is preposterous on so many levels it's untrue. Further, as I said actually already, your terrestrial refraction requires an R value and only exists in Muppet Vision side profile. That's how it's derived mathematically. Or to put it another way, Alwyn, it's got sod all to do with actual refraction effects that we see in real world.
That's true.
So if it's got sod all to do with the actual refractive effects that we may or may not observe to a negligible degree in our everyday lives, then you definitely don't have to suck off a presuppositional sphere-shaped air in order to achieve a presuppositional geometric horizon that can only be described and detailed in mathematics.
Well, and the ironic thing is that if, for some reason, let's not do it, it would actually be done, I bet it will actually reveal quite the opposite, and that is that, oh, look, no atmosphere, and now I can see even further. Look at that black swan, 100 or 200 miles away now, because yeah, your line of sight is going to be less limited because you're looking through less air, so you're going to be able to see even further over the flat plane.
Well, you don't even need to do that. All you got to do is go to what's already written in the explanation of why you don't use a sextant, say 15, 20 degrees above the horizon. But it's fine to use it above that because the refraction is normal refraction, and they've got it's a very minuscule amount. It's in the book already. So when you go to that level of 15 degrees or lower, say to the horizon, all the thickness of the air and all the particulates in the air, just stay away from that. But let's say you remove it somehow. Well, then guess what? The sextants will work on those stars now without all the math that you got to figure out. And they themselves say that when it's directly overhead at the zenith, there is no refraction because it's coming down vertically like a plumb line.
As are all of the stars used
something?
for measurable triangulation, because they've all effectively got a plumb line dangled from the ceiling. So effectively, when you're taking any angle measurement, once you've done dip correction, you're lining up a straight line along the ground to the ground position of the star. So it's flat. It's the end of the argument.
It is. Go on, Arvin. What were you going to say?
No, it's just a curiosity, because I still remember from the earlier videos, research days, that there seems to be an indication that if you go up really, really high with a high altitude balloon, that you don't see stars, right? So I drew an early conclusion from that, which I can't really confirm just yet, but I drew the conclusion that, okay, so does it require air to actually see the celestial bodies? Right? Because if there's less air, do you see less stars, or would you see more? Like, where are they, these light phenomenon?
I don't know. It'd be nice to know what they are
first. If you drew a
first.
vacuum, would you still even see it?
We'd need to know what they are first, wouldn't we?
What? No, not going there. Not curve, not R. Just vacuums and celestial lights.
Yeah. How do you know whether or not? If you don't know what it is, how do you know how it's going to react in different circumstances?
Well, you'd have to test that.
Right.
Like, but
Good luck with
yeah,
that.
is that worth the test? No.
Quick shout out to Tony Whitcomb, who says the ballers' problem is trust. Trust what they are told by all accounts. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety?
No, you need R for that, and our census would pick it up, and our census pick. The only thing we know is the sky, and the luminaries are turning, but the ground under our feet is not. It's obvious.
Right. Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
More fantasy on the baller side of a presupposed. See, they presuppose everything. They live in the presupposed world of theirs. So everything is presupposed, and then they try to take what they get in reality and use math to explain it. But reality, when the math doesn't match reality, like the black swan, what do? Well, now you obfuscate and say it's refraction. So with the center of the Earth, well, how do they know? The deepest they've gone is 8 miles, and then they're going to assume a center?
Well, they got P waves and S waves, though. So they can definitely model the data that they get from that into a sort of a spherical thing, if they wanted to, if they apply circumferential geometry.
Mathematical model that came out bad and wrong when they did it in the 8 mile borehole? When they hit things
yeah, but one day they'll get it right, maybe.
Okay. Well, get what right?
Well, they'd have to field test it constantly. Like, you need to actually test like the P waves and S wave system at larger and larger scales to just know like what are the effects that we're going to pick up when we do it over these distances, and then do that like thousands and thousands of times with different areas before you can get even close to getting accurate with predictions, if ever. Right? Might turn out that it's just impossible to do, that it doesn't actually work out.
No, actually, it's very possible to do, and they've already done it. They don't need to go to the extent that you're talking about, because if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959, every horizon distance can be no further than 1.22 miles. So guess what? You can figure out if there's a center with a core, just show us the curve at 1.22 miles at a 1 foot observer height. Oops. Save a lot of money.
Red herring. Damn it. Has nothing to do with P waves and S waves. No, but the scanning, the Earth scanning technology, P waves and S waves, to figure out what is there, doesn't have to do anything with the argument that there is a core in a sphere, but they could figure out what is down there. But in order to get there, you need to test it a lot. And it might be that it's just impossible to test over vast distances, no matter what they do.
Talk about a red herring. Nathan, please repeat the question.
What was the question again? Any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core?
Yeah.
At the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth?
Yeah, see, Arwen, that was the question. Not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that part, that's not going to work.
Yeah, for you. Playing Baldwin.
Me?
Yeah, you.
That was not Baldwin.
Oh, that was really you. Okay, that's a surprise.
Yeah, P waves and S waves are a thing. It's just when they model it into the sphere system with circumdicular geometry, that's when it starts to become nonsense. But scanning through rock is interesting.
Yeah, but if you have a curve on the surface, then there might be something at the center of a sphere. But if you don't have a curve, then why do you presuppose there's a sphere with a center?
I wasn't addressing that part of the question.
Well, of course. That's why you were playing Baldwin.
No, I'm like that too, 10th.
I know. I'm trying to get you to stay on one side.
Okay. Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
P waves and S waves.
I don't know where. No.
P waves and S waves. What?
Well, if he can do it, I can do it.
No, it doesn't work like that.
No, the atmosphere is not that thick, 10th.
Atmo what?
Oh shit, I said it.
Atmo what now?
The gas we're looking through towards what could be presumed to be a light object is not thick enough for P waves and S waves to work that way. We could just scan it. We could just use radio signals, lasers, whatever. Because air is pretty transparent. You don't have the same problem as with solid rock.
Why can't we just say air? Instead of atmos, plane, air and plane.
It's conditioning, Neil.
It is conditioning.
When all the news says it, when all the school book says it, yeah, you're going to say it. It's very tough to get away from.
It is. I found it the other day. I'll segue across to this question next. After shouting out Jules Lutz, who says, space may be the final frontier, but it's made in a Hollywood basement. Red Hot Chili Peppers. Indeedy do. Thank you very much indeed for the super chat. I was teaching my kid about motion in this, I don't know, Key Stage 1 book or whatever it was, and it was describing the centre of gravity. Now, without, much consideration, I just rattled it off and gave the description as it was intended. Obviously after the fact I'm describing it now and gave it some consideration, but in the actual tutorial, I wasn't interested in the fact that that particular word had connotations that are indeed brainwashing and conditioning my eldest daughter in that respect. And we've all been subject to it. We all say atmosphere without really thinking about it. I did it the other day when we were talking about that NASA building. I'm like, it's claimed to have its own atmosphere. I'm like, as soon as I said it, I'm like, hang on. So they're saying inside this big massive NASA building, there's a sphere-shaped air. It's got its own sphere-shaped air. Oh, wow. That's interesting.
I didn't mean always. I meant when we deliberately say atmo or atmos plane. Why don't we just say air and plane?
Well, you just said it right there, Nathan. Every time you want to reference them, just say sphere-shaped air rather than atmosphere. And every time you want to reference reality, you can just say air.
Yeah, I'm trying. It just comes out. Like certain things with gravity, that's my point. You just, linguistically, magic is just part of the language, right? Spells and spelling. Well, how do we become under the spell of heliocentrism? Well, with words. So when you're being trained to understand how the centre of gravity is affecting a certain motion, when you think about it in those terms, and then when gravity is detailed to you later on in your educational process, you link the things together. So, okay, so there's always this force, there's always this gravity, and there's 1G in effect always. Okay, I get it. And it's the reason I don't float off into the air when you're later told what it is with a nonsensical explanation about a force that's in effect, that's holding you to the ground. If you go on to higher education, they'll explain how it's actually the conceptual medium of pseudo-force space bending. But by that time, you've already got it linguistically programmed into you, and everyday vernacular that you will use to not necessarily describe something that has a, astrotheological meaning or whatever you want to attribute to this brainwashing as a religion. You just use the word and ascribe the meaning that is colloquially ascribed to it.
Yeah, that's why when you watch a golf tournament, the announcer says, oh, and gravity took over.
Yeah, gravity took over and got it to roll into the hole. And you're like, yeah, you mean it rolled down because it was heavy and it was at the top of a hill. And then you think in this arena, you have to even get down to the, what does heavy mean? Well, heavy means a downward vector, weight, right? So you've got to get down to the nitty-gritty, but even if you use that weight word in your common vernacular, you don't appreciate that you're invoking gravity just by using that word. But it's part of your brainwashing, it's part of the language, it's part of the education.
And it's very hard to step away from its simplicity as well. That's also part of the problem, because what is weight, right? It's relative density disequilibrium in a standard air medium, and then assigned to a numerical value versus the volume of the object, whatever you're weighing. But yeah, to just say all that in one word is so much easier, right? Despite the mathematical complications, despite the bad theory tied into it, it's just so much easier to just say wait than to completely describe what it actually is. It's very tough.
Yeah, exactly. It's linguistically programmed into us. Now, while you might be able to step away from that paradigm and a fundamental level understand that you're not standing on a sphere, that it is just a philosophy, well, it doesn't change the fact that your language, English in this example, if there are people who have native language that's not English, then, you know, the same thing applies presumably in your language. I'm no language expert. But linguistically, we'll have these concepts reified into existence just by speaking them into existence with everyday words that we use. So yeah, you can step away and say, no, I understand that to conceptualize the world as a sphere, to appreciate the movement of the lights in the sky, is quite elegant as a model, but it isn't the world. That's a reification fallacy. Doesn't change the fact that the following sentence might be about the atmosphere, the sphere-shaped air that I'm breathing. Just out of habit, basically. Any scientific evidence of gravity?
What is it?
Down 9.8 meters per second.
Is that the natural phenomena occurring?
That isn't a natural phenomena that I see occurring. As I sit here, nothing's doing that. Literally nothing is doing that.
Okay, so it's just a calculatory derived concept then.
Yeah, you summarised it beautifully earlier with relative density disequilibrium in air.
So that's weight, right? Gravity is all these elements extracted from properties of things.
No, old-fashioned gravity is weight.
Is it literally that, or is like...
Yeah.
Is it
Yeah, it is.
the gravity times the mass makes the weight?
Yes. What's the... Let me try a different way. I'll try it from a different angle, because it's obviously you're thinking this is too simple. No, it isn't. So they say that gas is like bouncy balls, right? Well, what's it doing that's like bouncy balls? Well, it's going down, go boom, boom, Arwin. Why is it doing that? Go down, go boom, boom. That would be a downward vector, weight. Why has the gas got weight? Well, because gravity.
But that's technically incorrect, though.
No, I know it's incorrect.
No, hold on. It's even incorrect within the presuppositions, because technically, effectively, gas doesn't have mass. It doesn't have that trait in its gaseous state.
Yeah, I know. But that doesn't change that in their paradigm, literally gas go down, go boom, boom, doesn't it, Arwin? The weight of the gas above pressing on the gas below. Like we've got homogeneous layers of gases. For heavier gases above, which makes no sense in their own description, to be pressing down on the gases below. You're like, number one, gases don't do that. They expand in all directions. They're not clumped together to force stuff down with a concept that works in air. It is air. So it's just moving in all directions, free, until it hits something, either another gas particle or the walls of its container. That's it. And so it just flies around in all directions. Not down, go boom, boom.
Absolutely. But I'd like to address the argument, though, as to where did it came from, because I don't remember Newton ever even describing gas doing that. I think that it's an anti-flat earth invention discovered much later when people started to ask the question, but how does that work with gas? How does it work with gas? And I think at first they just didn't address it at all. And then this nonsense story about gas go down, go boom, boom was kind of made up.
Yeah.
I don't think Newton ever even considered anything like that.
Absolutely.
Ever.
The amount of bloody hours I spent talking to Sleeping Warrior going, look, man, while you're telling me that I need to overcome gas go down, go boom, boom, that isn't how gravity works, and that is not something that is overcoming the second law of thermodynamics. So this is just anti-flat earth rhetoric. Now, I didn't have that vernacular at the time, right? But I was explaining to Anthony, Sleeping Warrior, you don't need to overcome this. Every single reference that you will find about gas behaviour will not back this argument that they are making. Because that's not how gas behaves. That's why all of my citations come from universities about the second law of thermodynamics. About half a dozen already. Well, why? Well, because they agree with us. We know how gas behaves. It doesn't go down, go boom, boom. It's an anti-flat earth rhetoric, absolutely. But Anthony's response to me was, yeah, but they still argue it. I'm like, so? Stands in violation of natural law. But he's like, well, yeah, but you tell that to the person I'm arguing with right now. I'm like, I would have said, past Nathan speaking to future Nathan or present Nathan, was, yeah, just call them an anti-flat earther. Because they're not arguing for a globe rhetoric and they won't get citations for gas go down, go boom, boom. Who are they going to go to? Thunderfoot. Look at my bouncy balls poured into this fish tank. That's how gas behaves right there. Is it, you complete clown? Oh, right. Can you show me a practical demonstration that doesn't involve a solid bonded bouncy ball and maybe an unbonded gas particle doing that? Oh, what? It just expands to fill the space every time? Yeah, we know. It's a natural law.
Right.
Yeah, we have natural law on our side, right?
Ah, indeed. I wonder, though, where did this story about gas being bouncy balls going down in the really ill-conceived heliocentric conception of how the atmosphere is sticking to the ball, when did that story start to arrive? Because again, Newton, who lived like, what is it now, 200 years ago, he had Newtonian mechanics. He kind of excluded gas except for friction within his modeling, and he was interested in orbits. He did write about that, and then he disclaimed it to be a hypothesis because it wasn't scientific. But he did not come up with the idea of gas going down through gravity. He just didn't address that part at all. So I wonder, when did that notion first start rolling into popular talk?
Okay, fine. We'll throw it out to the audience and chat and Discord, etc., etc. So if somebody can tell us where the origin of this complete and utter nonsense that gas go down, go boom, boom started, we'd be all ears to know who we can ascribe this utter horse crap to.
Indeed. Because I think the idea of this part of the story might not even be 50 years old. Might not even be 10 years old. We don't know.
It might have started with us. We might have only started getting gas go down, go boom, boom when the most recent wave of flat earthers came on the scene. For all we know, the same exact argument was made in the 70s with the last wave of flat earthers. Who knows?
Exactly. History. History is important.
Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Historically, no. None.
They can only go as far as observation. After that, the scientific method is impossible for them.
I know we've covered it quite a lot already, but any evidence you can have gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
You require at least 2 containers to demonstrate anything gas-related.
I'll do this every show. It's going to be a thing, isn't it? I'll say it again,
Yeah.
Armin. Any evidence that you can have gas pressure without a container. Without a singular A being one. Without one, let alone 2.
Well, you'd have to leave this realm and enter some kind of weird, unnatural realm.
No,
in order
this
to
realm.
demonstrate that.
This realm.
What bloody realm?
This realm.
Next bus to the next realm is when?
The problem is this realm is contained. It has to be, because we do have gas pressure, and it's even relatively stable.
Sorry, what's a realm?
It has
What's
to
a
be
realm?
there.
Sorry, is this King Arthur's times? What's going on? Why are we calling where we live a realm?
What?
What's a
He's
realm?
overwhelmed right
What's
now.
a realm?
He's overwhelmed right now.
He's not
A
overwhelmed.
realm is a container
He's
with land
overwhelmed.
in it.
Look, I'm
In
rumpusing his answer. What's a realm, Arwin?
You got me flat-footed. I don't know how to answer this.
You're the one using the word. You're calling,
I
presumably,
don't
where
know.
we
It's
are.
just a realm, a place, a world.
Jules Ludd says, my gas always goes up. Okay, well, that's good for you. Thank you for the super chat. I've heard this word
guess
used
I
by
have to Google the word.
many different, mostly flat earthers. They like to call where we live a realm. I'm like, what the hell's a realm? It's like the realm of King Arthur, because that would be just a certain amount of land that he has rule over. That's his realm, right? So I understand it in that context. What do you mean, though? What does it actually mean? I've never looked up the word realm. I've never been that interested. But you're using the word. Hopefully you're Google searching it. I'm buying you enough time to. No, nobody knows. Why do we get described as being in a realm, precisely? Nobody knows. It's just a cool word, I guess.
No, it's a region. It's basically describing a region. It could be anything. So, like England or the Great Britain could be a realm considerably, or you could call Asia and Europe a realm. It all depends on the context, really. So it is unspecified in a way.
You just use it
It's
to
just a
sound cool,
place.
don't you?
I like the word. Yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You're just using it to sound cool.
It's a widespread used word in D&D cosmology too. Call it realms.
I see.
I don't know. I'm over-regioned. Doesn't go well.
Did we cover all housekeeping? It'd be the first time this week if we did.
I think so. I think I can't think of one you missed. But they haven't been answered in ages, so...
Right, it seems like ages. It's probably just this week because there's been a lot to talk about. I've got a special edition show coming out tomorrow. So yesterday evening, myself, Arwin, Adam, Brian, Mitchell dropped along and so did Eli, and I can't remember if anybody else mustered along while we were having this discussion about a guy called Tommy... I don't even know the person they were talking about. Guys, yeah, I'm definitely not abreast of the anti-flat earth scene. So some dude that made a model. They pulled apart the model, Adam and Brian mostly. And yeah, it was a good couple of hours of them pulling it apart, showing the model in Google SketchUp and showing how it was a bastardization of reality, as all models are. But anyway, that's coming out tomorrow.
What was the model of again?
Say again? What was the what?
What was the modeling for, and what was the subject of the model?
Okay, so model number 1 in the 3 was an flat Earth model which had the Blackpool Swan image rammed down into the ground by 2 kilometres. Oh joy. The second model was a globe Earth with radius 3959, and then there was another one with radius 4,900 or something like that. It was 7,500 in K. So they've got 3 different models. One's a normal globe Earth, normal radius. One is an extended radius, quote unquote, effective radius turned into a physical radius, i.e. the ground has now been made bigger by this use of the effective radius. You mean what you assume is bending the light around the physicality of the ground on the floor when you assume it's a sphere? But you're going to turn that into a physically bigger sphere Earth because you've got this new term effective radius. Yeah, so that was the third model. So those 3 were analysed. Obviously, the effective model had the photograph nicely lined up with the ground to make it work the best. The globe Earth model had it sort of, I don't know, maybe a kilometre rammed into the ground. And the flat Earth model had the photo rammed 2 kilometres into the ground. It was all a bit of a joke, really. But if you like that sort of thing, it'll get ripped apart tomorrow. That's Saturday. I know, don't normally mention the day, but in this case I've got to.
I'll be back in a minute with something.
I don't know what title, the working title that's gone out to the members, so if you're a member you can watch this now, but it's just called Flat Earth. I think it's just called Flat Earth Debate Special Edition at the moment. It's got no thumbnail or title as yet, but I'm sure I'll come up with one before tomorrow when it actually goes out to the public. So be here or be sphere, it's this time tomorrow. So typically on a Saturday I don't do a live show. I'll normally play one of the uncut and after shows that hasn't gone out yet, a members only one. But tomorrow will actually be a brand new show that's not a Flat Earth debate. It's a special edition, like I say. which was fun to make. Shout out to Brian and Adam for all their hard work in that regard. Adam explained that he had built an extension, and rather than employing a designer, he just became familiar with a program called Google SketchUp, just a 3D CAD program. And as a result, he was, maybe fairly long time ago, maybe 10 or 15 years ago, but nevertheless, he was reasonably familiar with it. So this dude that had this model on his video, and he's obviously just taking various screen captures and showing how the model works. But in video format, obviously, you can't work your way around it and look at the parameters and get in deep with the model. But Adam, being familiar with that particular piece of software, just asked for it, and good to, fair play to the guy, just handed it over. So Adam just got into it and was like, right, let's have a good look. And, he was at least seemed reasonably adept at using the program. So from that perspective, Adam was able to make his examples and zoom in and out and show what he was talking about, rather than just detailing how the mathematics utilized to create the model are unrealistic or bastardized or wrong in many instances. Fudged would be probably the best word I would use. Shave a little bit off here that it doesn't match with, shave a little bit off there that it doesn't match with, etc., etc. And I can tell you're all really excited about this special edition that we're going to be doing, pulling apart a model that some anti-flat earth made. The cheers ringing in my ears.
He called yesterday in a war room. Sorry.
That's okay.
I thought you were reading a super chat. He called a few people in the war room yesterday and went over it. Good stuff.
So you got a vague idea what I'm talking about then. It was actually on yesterday's show towards the end. Brian brought it up in his annoyance and he's like, look at this. And then it gave us a sneak preview of what this will be covering, because we got to see screen captures from the guy's YouTube video. And obviously they contained the model images, so you can get a vague idea from yesterday's show what will be talked about on tomorrow's special edition. If you want, if that tickles your fancy. I've got to be honest, my only interjection in that particular discussion was to say, where did they get the R value from? And once all of the discussion of the model was over, it moved across to the claim from the dude that has presented this, that there's plenty of ways to measure R, we just ignore them. And then the citation was just literally wiki with these phallic models and not a really concise description of how R's actually acquired, although it was read through by Brian. Once we dug a few links into the citations in Wikipedia, as is always the case, they're measuring the presupposition of a meridian curve, I believe it was called. In other words, they just beg the question that they're doing the measurements on a spherical surface. Don't mention that on the first page that you go to if you reference Wiki. Doesn't even describe how it's done. But like I say, dig in a couple of links and find out. Yeah, of course, they beg the question and assume they're measuring a spherical surface.
Well, they have to.
Indeed. Shout out to that flat fellow for the super chat.
Nathan, go to Master B for that document I was looking for. Hopefully this is on the same subject. I think it was.
Okay, it's up.
This is from that one. I almost got a trash truck behind me making a bunch of noise. Association of American Geographers. Before I read that, I want to read the prologue, the beginning of the article. Fictitious geography. We know what geography is, and we know what fictitious is. So this is the title, Fictitious Geography. In science, and also in mapping, we are concerned with non-fiction generally in our work. But all too often, we lose sight of the fact that much of our non-fiction is built upon abstraction and arbitrarily agreed upon convention, like p-values, for instance. With that in mind, today I will share some words from the glossary to help us remember that right there in our nonfiction research is our own fiction that we like to call abstraction and assumption. That's how this article starts. And what you have there is, I believe, the topic you guys were talking about yesterday, radius of Earth effective. Would that be correct?
Yes.
A fictitious value of Earth's radius. A fictitious value of Earth's radius. That's how that starts. Which, when used in the formula for the distance from a point to a geometric horizon. Now, right there, geometric horizon, they need one. They're the ones with the sphere that needs that, and the black swan took care of that. If the Earth was spherical and without air, tangents drawn to the surface from a point above it would define a circle, geometric horizon, outside of which no points on the sphere would be visible from the chosen point, but all points inside it would be. There's your local horizon that they're talking about. If an atmosphere were added, points outside the circle would become visible because the line of sight would curve and extend to points beyond the geometric horizon as far as a circle, the apparent horizon, of greater radius. Distance to the apparent horizon can be calculated using same formula as used for distance to the geometric horizon. If, in that formula, a larger value, the effective radius is used for the radius of the Earth. The effective radius for points of observation within the troposphere is greater than the true radius and increases with wavelength of the radiation of which the observations are made. It is particularly useful in determining, without long calculation, whether 2 points a considerable distance apart will be intervisible or able to receive each other's signals. For radio waves, an ultra-high frequency, the effective radius is about 4/3 the true radius. Now, they're telling you this is fictitious, and yet they're talking about it as if they've got something. And there's so many contradictions in this.
Yeah, it also debunks any notion claimed by anti-flat earthers or otherwise that they have any capability of acquiring a straight line to use the sextant. Do you want to read the part out again when they explain about the light without the atmosphere? Once you've added atmosphere, bent lines always. Well, according to your fundy belief, we've always got sphere-shaped air. So according to you, we're always going to have light bending. So sextants rendered useless and impotent on a sphere that you believe you're standing on. And yet it still works with an assumption that you've got a straight line to the GP of the star and a 90-degree angle capable to it. Well, if that's the case, Earth's flat. And if the sphere-Earth assumption with atmosphere always present is true, you can't use that tool.
I'm glad you caught that, but let me read the last sentence. We should embrace the fiction in our science because understanding what we can measure and what we can not is a very important step to understanding the world around us scientifically. What a bunch of... So if I'm supposed to understand things scientifically, right? I mean, think about how we've been drilled with that. It's the science, baby, the science. So it's just basically saying, this is it. This is how things work. And then here it says, we should embrace the fiction in our science. Well, how can you embrace any fiction in science?
Oh, it's outrageous. They've only got to drop it in, even though they're suggesting that you should embrace fiction in science, because that word's in there. And most people, and especially anti-flat earthers, will nod along. You know, they'll take this and they'll go, look, always refracted. That's our response to the black swan. Oh, yeah. So when you're drawing a straight line to the horizon, what do you do? Well, you just assume it's straight. So no Atmo day then.
Just in case people don't trust me on this, Nathan, I'm going to put the title page on so they can see who talked about this. These aren't people who come as anti-flat earthers. The title, I'll be back for, look for Master B in a second.
Any chance I could reference something really quick, Nathan?
Yeah, of course.
I posted something in Discord chat. It's specifically the Google definition for sphere. And while I completely agree that the common used definition for atmosphere completely comports with what you're saying, that they mean sphere-shaped air. But I think a lot of flat earthers, or myself, who recognize the aspect, use the term atmosphere with that second definition, talking about the area where the air is, the region where the air is, as opposed to, say, the celestial sphere, the area where the stars are, and the terrestrial sphere, the area where the Earth is, where we are. I mean, it's sort of a common taxonomy that I think existed for a long time and got co-opted. But, sometimes I think we can mean air area without getting hung up on the globe rhetoric.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. You're saying in common vernacular, atmosphere just means the area of air. Fine. Other than the sphere bit in it, which means sphere.
Well, it does, but it also, I find that in the link I posted, or the picture I posted, I found it interesting that there are at least 6 or 7 synonyms for the second definition, which is referring to just a sort of a region or area.
I see. So in the same respect, colloquially, in my social sphere, I have blah, 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 blah.
Exactly. Or like Arwen was saying earlier about a realm. Well, it's sort of a fancy way of saying an unknowable area that is defined but not exactly a shape.
Yeah, and fair enough. And in general language terms, I'm not going to, kick myself when I say atmosphere in general day-to-day speech. It is part of the language, and I'm certain that when I'm using it, I know I don't mean air wrapped around a sphere flying through a vacuum, but that is commonly what it also means and is utilised in that way. I mean, what was just read out by 10th Man is the antithesis, is the definition of that.
Very, very true, but it's sometimes convenient for us, or those of us who do recognize the aspect of the Earth being flat, that we can talk about it without having to stumble over it every time.
I get you. And while I appreciate your sentiment, you will be hung if you use that word again. Do you understand?
Oh, totally.
That's acceptable, but what I can't accept is when they're talking about somebody or something or a company, and they say they're the best on the planet. That drives me insane.
Those slides are up, Nathan.
Can't believe Neil is part of our sphere of influence, but there we go. That's just life. Yeah, I've got it up.
So where's this coming from? What I just read.
AAG.
Oh, pretty interesting. Educated people, right? Talking about the fiction in their science. You're not supposed to have fiction in science. That's major contradiction. But they need it in order to move the globe model. So they go through a whole list of fictitious titles of topics they talk about all the time. And of course, the one I read was the radius. And then the next slide will show you the last piece I read at the bottom of the page.
Oh, I was going to ask, but didn't want to interrupt your flow.
Yeah, but go ahead. You can move it there, I guess. I already read it, so it's right at the bottom there.
No, it's useful to have it on screen. Some people may want to take screenshots or something and reference it, but there it is if you wanted to reference what was read out at the end of 10th Man's little bit a moment ago.
Yeah, so the question is this. Let me pose it the way I would. If I'm sitting in the room and people from this organization were talking to people, say, on the panel here, and they're going back and forth, back and forth. Say, hang on, can I ask a question? And they'd say, sure. So I've been listening to your conversation. You represent the American Association of Geographers. And these guys over here are from the Flat Earth debate panel. And I've been listening to you for a while. You put out a paper, and this is what you say in your paper. You say you're embracing fiction. How can you be objective and forthright in your discipline when you jump out of nonfiction to fiction as easily as you can do? Is that because you got a presupposition?
Of course.
So reality doesn't match. That's why they got this paper. Reality doesn't match their findings, yet they want to be held up in academia. And the only way they can be held up is to say, hey, in order to keep our model and reality that fights our model, we're going to have to go to fiction. So let's just go to fiction and keep our model.
Sleeping Warrior from the chat says it's not hung, it's hanged. Well, thank you, Sleeping Warrior. I've just looked it up in the Flat Earth rulebook, and actually the penalty for using the word atmosphere is the guillotine, so we're both wrong.
Sleeping Warrior hung and hanged at this moment.
He's just trying to say I'm common. I know his game.
Okay, I'm going to play rope-a-dope with that guy anymore.
Oh,
Really
yeah.
freaking great.
Go on, Neil.
No, I'm just saying, really great. I just passed the mirror, and I have a freaking black eye.
Eyewear.
I'd say you're lucky to have an eye at all, black or otherwise, but there we go.
So Sleeping Warrior's response would mean that the anti-flat earthers and the flat earthers can have a title, Never the Twain Shall Meet.
Boom, boom. Multi-level dad jokes.
I missed that. What did he say?
Nothing, Neil. Twain. Clearly not.
I love Mark Twain.
Well, this is a slow wind down to a live show.
Well, do we have anyone in Discord?
Can we keep stringing this along?
Hey, listen, it's because it's so
Love it.
dominating. It's like, let's see, like the dominating Pittsburgh Steelers teams of the 1970s in American football. I mean, they don't come because they can't. They have nothing. Who wants to come here and get beat up?
Where's the pun? Go on, you got to give us a pun. It's money for old rope.
I'm sure this show's comments will show up in somebody's threads.
Come on, can we not round out a Friday show on a string of puns for 8 minutes?
Well, my eye is
I
kind of
think-
bad. I do need stitches.
I think not.
Oh, God.
No, I'm afraid
I
not.
need stitches. I'm afraid not.
That was the best one, the knot.
Go on, give us some good news for the end of the show. No? No good news?
No, we don't have the audience hanging on your last word today.
You're going to get us wound up.
Nice.
I just thought if I gave you guys enough rope.
Hang on, I better say this right. I go
Hang yourself.
hung or hang myself. Which one is it?
Hanged.
I know. I'm just trying to get it on a roll.
Hold on.
Hold on.
Hanged.
That don't make sense.
Doesn't sound right. Blurfs on protest, says Sleeping Warrior. Blurfs have nothing to counter us with. The FE equivalence principle at Nathan Oakley, says Sleeping Warrior. Okay, good to know. On the quiet days, I'm happy so long as we get through housekeeping.
Yeah, I mean, we had a good discourse. I mean, it's few more minutes for a baller to show some whatever they want to show.
I don't know. I kind of miss the days when Wiggles would come in and try to go through the scientific method and get embarrassed and abused. I mean, berated.
Oh, is Wiggles your little pet, is he?
Well, it's fictitious. It's fictitious now, Neil. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I remember Bob boasting. I don't know how Wiggles even comes in there anymore until the hammer of Nathan fell across his dome.
Right, in a few minutes when this live show rounds out, Martin Leitke's got an FEB, or Flat Earth British Conference, going on. So that's live right now. It's been going live for a while. So check it out after this live stream finishes. Go and check out Martin Leitke's channel. You'll catch his live stream. Any other news?
I'm waiting for more rope puns.
More rope puns?
Yeah,
Oh God, no,
I want
please no.
I want to be taught.
Terrible. Terrible.
You want to be taunt.
Taught. Yeah, taught.
Oh, taunt. We taunt the ballers, anti-flat earthers.
How long will it take him? We'll let Neil get the joke before we round out.
You can have an extended show.
Ha ha ha. I don't even know what you're talking about. I know it's something to do with a string.
I was going to say I think not, but we've already had that one.
Well, it's hard to tell who's who, because a lot of the ballers and anti-flat earthers, they're intertwined with us.
Very nice.
Oh, bless. Bless him.
He found a way to walk the tightrope quite well there.
Am I leaving the right amount of silence afterwards? I don't have a tumbleweed sound effect.
This is so telling about the ballers, isn't it?
I think about the standard of puns, I can tell you that much.
Well, I'd rather do puns than listen to that nonsense. In fact, in navigation, you need nautical miles.
Nauticals.
But I thought you can't do long distance observations over water, you know? The Earth curve calculator now says that in red, you're not allowed to use bodies of water to observe over.
Yeah, not accurate for measurements near Earth curve, right?
So when using nautical miles, how does that influence your observation over water if you're not allowed to do the observation over water?
Look, you're not allowed to do boats over the horizon if you're using the curve calculator. You just say that nonsense and then hope that nobody reads that disclaimer if you ever try and justify your belief that boats are going over a physical sphere. We'll obviously discuss this in the pre-show, in the after-show, but if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley Premiering streams, then stay tuned as there will be an after-show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's live show possible. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I will see you all in the next video.
what a day! What a lovely day!